we should be able to leverage on technology and be able to reach out to the masses. In a split of a second, this can be, broadcast, and everybody will be able to understand what's happening. So what you're doing in your individual capacity should actually be driven by the church.
One thing that I learned during my training, they called it morning reflection circles. It's more prevalent with the Americans. So as a team leader, before you start work in the morning, they encourage you to come together, have a cup of tea or coffee for about 5 to 10 minutes. But as a leader, you are scanning and looking at your team and seeing who might have issues, they're not themselves, and so on. And so after that 10 minutes, the team disbands, they go to their various workstations, but you have picked up something that you need to deal with. You have seen an individual who is looking downtrodden, and so you call them aside and hear them out. You'll be amazed at how you will build that team. Stewards will not knock off until they have balance. Whether there's overage or there's a shortage, they have to find it and account for it. If you mirror that to the bank, exactly the same concept. The tellers will not knock off until they have balance.
Until their tills are balanced.
Yes. If I mirror that in the oil industry, I did run a depot where we had fuels in and out. At the end of the day, what you call the dispatchers, they must balance. How much fuel has gone out? How much has come in? At the end of the day, the ins and outs, you must balance. So that experience of a steward in the church, they get involved in that work. They are actually already starting to gain experience that will help them in the corporate world.
Hello, welcome to Money and People podcast, the show that connects the dots between financial success and the power of human capital. Today we have an interesting topic. We will be talking about the role of the church in helping shape careers. And to help us navigate this conversation, we have two special guests who are Mr. Morris Mujala and Mrs. Harriet Nakazwe-Angetile. Guests, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
And just to get everything started, please introduce yourselves and your background. So we can start with Mr. Mujala.
Yeah, my name is Morris Mujala. I heard from the corporate world, but I left the corporate world in 2008, having worked for BP Zambia for 27 years, the only company that I worked for. Thereafter, I went into business with a supply company in Umana. I've done a bit of solar, still active in the solar market, especially in Osaka. I also did some business with national airports for some years. And so Mrs. Angetile at some point was my boss. Because I needed to make sure that all my ducks were in a row until the business models changed. And thereafter, I moved out. Perhaps now I would say I'm more active in the church circles, doing quite a bit of work for the church. So that's me.
Okay. And Mrs. Angetile?
Okay, so it's Angetile.
Angetile.
Difficult name. Okay, so my name is Harriet Nakazwe-Angetile, like you rightfully said. So I'm a mother, I'm an elder church, I'm an employee. I'm currently working in one of the parastatals as director operations. So I've been working for the last 30 years in different departments within the corporation. I'm still in employment. It's been a journey. My initial qualification is engineering, electrical engineering, but I've also got business administration. I've got a master's in business administration as well. So it's been a long journey, and currently I'm also active in church. I'm an elder in church. I also do a lot of marriage counseling. Aside from being an elder in church, we prepare young people that are getting married in church. And also I'm so much into youth promotion, like engineering. Because of my background in engineering, I also have an NGO that advocates for women in engineering. We prepare those that are still in STEMs, encouraging them to take up these engineering courses. So yeah, those are my other additional activities that I do outside my formal employment.
That is fantastic. And so to get the interview started now, how do you see the church's role in preparing its members for careers beyond ministry, particularly in organizational leadership? Maybe Mr. Mujala, we can start with you.
I think just to start with in a few words, the church's role, if I look at it, typically is about preparing individuals for a better character. The church shapes the character of a person. So as you go to the messages that are preached Sunday in, Sunday out, they are really about how do you live with others, what kind of character do you carry, how about your integrity, how do you even look at the world, how do you fit yourself in a world in a way that does not impact negatively on others. So there's a lot of character shaping in the church that, for me, prepares especially the youngsters into the corporate world. So maybe in a nutshell, I can put it like that to start with.
Okay, and your thoughts on the matter?
Yeah, so I think, like Mr. Mujala has said, it's a platform that brings people together, people with a common goal of salvation. So it is a platform that allows for community engagement, where with one mission you work towards bringing others to Christ. You work together to ensure that you impact the communities where you're staying socially by reaching out, helping the needy, while you are growing spiritually. So it also provides an opportunity for leadership practice. So some members of the church are appointed to certain positions as elders, as stewards. So again, it gives them an opportunity to manage people, manage the church property, and also provide pastoral support to the sick, the bereaved, and just generally the social needs.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. And are there any biblical theological principles that support this idea of the church being a place for career development and experience?
If we talk about biblical citations, perhaps one would, just to start with, as a grounding, look at the Ten Commandments. What do they speak to? Okay, they, again, looking at your character and helping you to fit in society. There's the issues of ethical behavior. Thou shalt not steal.
Yes.
Thou shalt not covet. Thou shalt not honor your parents so that you might live long. You know, all those things, they shape the character of an individual. So if one is grounded in the word, you find that actually their whole persona is something else. Their whole persona is about fitting into society and even looking at success in life. So I think the grounding does come from those messages that you find in the Bible. I might also add that when you look at aspects of life, there's none, even in the corporate world, there's none that you cannot mirror to the church activities. They actually do mirror each other. And perhaps as we go on in the conversation, we'll be able to unravel some of these things and see how they actually marry. Whether you are in the church or corporate world, principles that you're applying are basically the same.
Okay, fantastic. And in what ways can the church provide practical work experience? I think this stems from the notion of, especially for a person like me who's in recruitment, you find the one big complaint that individuals have, especially fresh graduates, would be saying we don't have work experience, but they're asking for 2 years and they're asking for, this number of years of work experience. How does the church come in to fill in that gap and give employees a level of experience which might actually make them marketable in a business setting?
Okay, maybe before I respond to that one, I would like to speak to the biblical support.
Yes, sure.
Yes, so if you look at Acts, I like Acts because he quoted the scripture from the Old Testament. I like the one that comes from Acts, which is the New Testament, the New Covenant. That's Acts chapter 2, verse 42. It says, they devoted themselves to apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayer, a sense of our common goal, everyone, and the apostle performed many wonders and signs. All the believers were together and had everything in common. So the church kind of brings us to this common point where we all understand what must happen. So if you would like to replicate that in the corporate world, it means you have a goal. You are all aligned to this one goal and you are pulling in the right direction. So the church actually exists because there should be no differences within a church. Whether you are of this status or that status, it kind of brings everybody to a common point and gives everyone an opportunity to actually be themselves, to operate, and to be able to show their full potential. But having said that, I think the church is an institution on its own, like Mr. Mujala had said, and it has all faculties, just like a corporate institution. It has, leadership. It has managers who are supposed to manage, or supposed to supervise others, and you also have people that are supposed to actually do. So I think if well structured and being intentional, we should be able to provide these platforms for the young people. Because if you look at financial management, we have this aspect in our church. So we could actually bring in young people who are coming from universities or colleges who are just, graduated in financial management. They can come into our church and be a part. Those that are doing engineering can come and practice their engineering skills in our church and be able to refer to it even as they, gain some level of experience, so that when they're applying for employment, they should be able to refer that. It's traceable. And what is interesting also is that the corporate world also acknowledges the importance of a church. And generally, that's why you find young people, even when they want to get married, they would want to marry from the church. Why?
Church.
Because they acknowledge that there's something good about the church. When you pass away, you want your body to be, to have a final escort from the church. Why? Everybody acknowledges that the church is a good place, and it mentors, it shapes people. It is an organized way of doing things. So we should be able to find a way that we can bring in these young people in church and find them something that they can do. So I think there's room for us to actually do that.
Let me just add maybe a practical example to
Yes.
what Mrs. Angetile has put in. If you look at specifically the role of a steward, the steward is almost like the beginning level in the church in terms of getting to have responsibilities in the church. Now, what does a steward do typically? They are the ones responsible for receiving congregants as they walk into the church for the service, and they direct them where to sit. Thereafter, their other role is to make sure that everybody is seated in and seated comfortably. If there are any that need to be moved, again, they move them. That you could say KYC, know your customer. And then from there, the stewards are responsible for counting of the offering and the tithes. Right? When every one of us, after prayers, we are done, the service is over, we're gone. They remain behind counting the tithes and offerings. Now that brings in the aspect of financial management. So as they do that, what else are they involved in, right? They make sure that they record in the member's card what the member has put in as offering. As they do that, issues of integrity come in, because I know what I have put in. And if next Sunday I pick my card, I find a different number entered on my card, then there are issues. So integrity does come in. They also have to record in what you might call a master control sheet. And as we did, if I just use the example of St. Andrews, UCZ St. Andrews, we used to struggle counting monies at some stage because of the way the the structure was put. So we came up with actually a computer program where we just started feeding in the numbers, card number, name, amount, and so on, and put in some formulas that balanced whatever we got as a section, and we use that now as a master actually for all the sections and the church in totality. So at the end of the day, you know that stewards will not knock off until they have balanced. Whether there's overage or there's a shortage, they have to find it and account for it. If you mirror that to the bank, exactly the same concept. The tellers will not knock off until they have balanced.
Until their tills are balanced.
Yes. If I mirror that in the oil industry, I did run a depot where we had fuels in and out. At the end of the day, what you call the dispatchers, they must balance. How much fuel has gone out? How much has come in? At the end of the day, the ins and outs, you must balance. So that experience of a steward in the church, if they get involved in that work, they are actually already starting to gain experience that would help them in the corporate world. They will be speaking about that experience, whether it be in the bank or in the service industry, or it be where you are doing marketing of products and services. They can already begin to take that experience there. So that's, for me, what the church can do to help those who are starting up and want to start building their careers.
So basically, there's no excuse for someone to just sit at home and say, I'm a graduate, I'm waiting for employment and I can't get.
Not at all. Then if they are sitting and waiting for perhaps Jesus Christ to come, they may not start their career at all. But here's an opportunity where they can come into church, offer themselves, offer their time, in the same way that perhaps I can go what's happening in the country. Those who finish doing their doctorate in medicine or their nursing, and they are being told, volunteer. So that actually when you are volunteering, one of the aspects that people forget is not just giving your labor, right? It's keeping your skills alive.
Yes.
Right? So in the same way, these graduates, when they come out of college, they should learn to say, the church I go to, let me volunteer my time and skills. And they'll be surprised just how much they are going to learn from volunteering in church. There's a lot. The scope is very wide.
I know you want to.
Yes, I wanted to come in. I do understand that yes, the church in itself is complete and it has all these areas that can help. But I think what has not happened is we have not been deliberate. We have not put structures in place that actually invites. So there could be maybe a graduate sitting at home, but have we, highlighted that which we can do in church so that we can attract them to come to church? We haven't. Even those that are in church, unless you are picked as a steward, you cannot even know that there are all these opportunities that you
yes.
can use your skills and things like that. So I think we need to be deliberate as a church, and I've seen that coming up. Right now, I think there is, we're just coming from a theme that said understanding the times and knowing what to do. We are now going into a new theme, which is, there's a new theme that has come up.
Okay, both of us are.
I'll remember.
It's a very short one.
Yeah, it's a very short one. So understanding the time. So as a church, I think we're already having these discussions, and I look forward myself to be a part of this so that we see it being actualized. So we are moving away from the old way of doing things, where church is closed up, to only the elders and the stewards. But let's open the church up so that we invite other people to come and be a part. So I think we just need to be intentional. We need to be practical. We need to translate the spiritual side of things to practical way of doing things, and that's what Jesus did. He walked, he healed, he did all the things. He just didn't say that you have got the powers to heal, but he demonstrated it. Yeah, so even us as a church, I think we just need to be intentional.
No, it's actually interesting, especially the points that you've laid out. Like I mentioned earlier, you have this issue of individuals, and I'm now speaking to people who want to join the corporate sector, but they don't have experience. They'll talk a lot about, yes, I've got this, I've got a degree, but everybody else has a degree. They'll talk about, and it sort of ends there. They also put a long list of things, communication, this, and sometimes I'm like, but who told you you're good at communication? How can you show?
that
Yeah.
you actually
You don't just put a list of things, but the church in itself, from what I've experienced, is also a very, very good place for mentorship. Because also, if you look at different individuals, I believe, look at you've had 30 years experience in petroleum. You've had your 30 years experience, especially in mainstream engineering and just all manner of operations in parastatal. And it's already a free source of mentorship for somebody to come through. And I'm just thinking, if I'm a recent graduate and I do partake of some of these activities in the church, and I'm looking for somebody to give me a good reference, if I put your name 30 years or your name 30 years or somebody else's name, it even carries a whole lot more weight to say, this is the person who's saying good things about this one. Because another thing that we look at when we're talking about references is sometimes you look at a person. I mean, if a brother is the one who's a referee, you're like, okay, I mean,
the brother.
what do you expect?
Yeah.
But if it is somebody who held a position of authority for a long time, we know that there's a lot of integrity in that person. They know what they're talking about, and also at the level at which they're recommending. It's this really, really high level, and it's likely to increase somebody's chances of being considered a whole lot more based on the people who are actually talking about them. Yeah. And so, what partnerships can churches form with local businesses or institutions to create entry level career pathways for congregants? Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I think we can partner with different institutions. Like I said, we just need to be structured in the manner we look at the church. So we could partner. For instance, we do have a university that trains our clergy. So we could actually run short courses, at our institution in social counseling. I know that there's TEAS. So you offer those courses to people that would like to go into counseling. We could actually look at what is happening, what is trending at the moment. There's the issue of mental health. If we could offer, that training, 6 weeks or 3 months at our institution, we should be able to attract, young people that maybe, are not doing anything, or even other people that would like to, begin to help out in institutions. Because at every organization, you just don't have to focus on operations. You also have the mental side of things.
Yes, we
People
do.
need to be mentally stable if they have to perform. So we go to these institutions, sell these ideas. Not only are we going to generate money, but we're also going to bring institutions closer to the church so that they understand. So we could use our institution to provide those short courses. We could also go into these institutions and just be of service. If we have graduates, you attach them to these institutions where they can be there to just, provide that aspect of support in terms of people that are unwell. Nowadays, you don't just say HIV and AIDS, you just say wellness,
Wellness, yes,
wellness,
yes.
so that it encompasses other things like your blood pressure and, diabetes and all of that kind of a thing. So we have an opportunity as a church, I think, to bring the corporate world or other partners closer to ourselves. But also it would be easier for us to lobby for funding from institutions. But personally, when I was doing counseling, because we were so organized in the reports that we actually submitted at the end of it, someone read through these reports at TEAS in Mindolo, and they found funding for us for HIV and care. So the target was actually the younger people, because now I think the statistics are showing that younger people are more prone to HIV than the older ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were given funds actually because the church is trusted. So even, external funders would actually fund through the church, to reach out to the needy. So there's many ways that we can actually partner as a church.
May I just add that,
Yes, please.
yes, while we are looking at entry level, like we said earlier on, the church has all structures and all skills or skill sets that you can pick from. So yes, we've talked about entry level, but how about middle management level? The church does provide a platform even for such. So that people don't think just because now I've been able to get a job, perhaps I don't need the church anymore for mentorship and growth. And yet there are things like leaders of groups in the church, right? So when you start looking at those leaders of groups and even to the level of, say, elders, you have what we call conveners of different groups. There's a structure in the church that speaks to them meeting quarterly, and those quarterly meetings are about present what has happened in your group around these key areas. So therein comes the aspect of presentation skills, report preparation,
Yes.
because it must answer to a certain criteria. So you are already being groomed into middle management. And so when you stand before the rest of the crowd in the church and you're presenting your report, how does it come out? What is your mental state? Are you ready to face them? Because at the end of the day, you may be asked questions about your report. How much have you prepared? So that's already beginning to speak to supervisory level kind of training. If you put it even further, then you start saying, yes, I'm now at middle management. I'm able to do this. Through the church, I've been able to mirror this and learn that. But you go even into what we call top management. So look at the church structure, the role of the elders. The elders meet, plan for the church. Everything starts from there and starts to trickle down. And so when they are meeting, you might call perhaps those as management meeting. But at even a higher level, you have what you might now call board meetings, which still happen in the church. So at congregation level, yes, you have a board, and the board might be chaired by the congregation minister, and the elders are members of the board.
Yes.
So there's a lot of training in that. You're looking at the life of your members from a holistic point of view. And there are a lot of things that come out, including what you see in the corporate world. Certain reports end at board level. That information is not disseminated to the rest of the company. So it is with the church. There are certain things that are confidential. They end up with the elders. And that's it. They have strategized and agreed how to move the congregation forward, and it ends there. They go and implement, but they are held by certain ethics that they cannot divulge certain things. So there's a lot that you can mirror, as we said earlier on, that people can pick up by being involved in the church. They actually become better leaders in the secular world.
No, and that's really interesting, that point, because it seems there's an opportunity for people at all levels. And sometimes I think what I face, even in my own experience, would only end at, going to church thinking it's a place of prayer, and primarily it's, prayer and fellowship. But then if you then start to understand a lot of other activities that the church is involved in, you then start to see this relationship, say, I also do this at work, I do that. And sometimes there are certain things that you may even be struggling with at work. It's maybe affecting your performance, but in the church setting, of course, like we talked about, there are people who are going to mentor you, guide you, help you, build that sort of strength and resilience, the mental resilience as well, which you may not sometimes may be deemed as a luxury somewhere because you're already expected to have it, but the church will be able to provide that for you. It actually makes you a sort of better employee. And it then brings me to the other question, to say, volunteer opportunities within the church, how can they be structured better to give members those transferable skills? Are we I know we are from one church, but what guidance can we give to other churches based off of how we've experienced our church, and what has worked, and what is it that we can actually help other churches with to help prepare their membership? And it's, as opposed to saying church, maybe we say place of worship, so that we cut across all religious affiliations.
Okay, so but before I answer that question of how, in this case, as a religion, as Christians, not just the congregation, I wanted to bring in the aspect of culture. I know that we do have what we call at corporate level. We obviously interrogate the national culture. We have organizational culture. We also have professional culture. Maybe among us many other cultures that you can refer to. So, what is it that shapes our national culture? I still find that Christianity in general has not really used its opportunity to bring or to improve the culture. If we are saying up to 90% of Zambians are Christians, then we should be able to have a culture at national level that speaks to that. If you look at other religions, I don't know if I'm allowed to point at Islam. I guess I am because I'm speaking about something positive.
Yeah.
What happens in church actually translates at national level. So their behaviors are not separated. I find Christianity to be a little bit, working in isolation. For them, regardless of where you are, if it is time to worship, it is part of, even the corporate world. They have provided for people to, go and worship, do their prayers every so often. Even in airports, we've ended up providing for them because it's a must. So there's no separation. But for us, I find ourselves separating. On Sunday, we are holy, we are doing this. When we go to, back into our communities, we are a different group of people. So Christianity has failed to really use its position to influence, a culture. If we are talking about being a Christian nation, then we shouldn't be speaking of high levels of corruption, because even the people that are in government are Christians,
They're
for
Christians,
starters.
yes.
So we shouldn't be speaking of, being concerned so much about immorality in our country. So it then speaks to how we can, and maybe it's because we have just been focusing on the spiritual aspect, but if we could just be all encompassing and look at the social side of things, what is it that makes people behave in the manner they behave, and how can we use the church to help? Then we could have a culture that will translate into integrity in institutions.
In institutions,
Yes, then we'll be able to have people that will not steal because, the Bible does not encourage us to steal. They will not want to, to help themselves to money that doesn't belong to them. Nepotism in institutions and all these things are happening. Why? Because the national culture is really not well defined to a point where we can actually speak from the Christian point of view. For me, if we could actually do that, then it will actually show, because currently it's not showing. It's like we are Sunday worshippers. The rest of the day, the rest of the week, I'm doing my own thing. So we need to be a complete, whether my place of work, That's why you still find people, when they're going to church, they're dressed in a certain way. On Monday, when they're going for work,
it's different.
it's a different story. And you're like, oh, is this the same person? Why? Because we think that the church building is where we should practice. Outside that, I should be my own self, I need to reconnect on Sunday. So I thought that I should bring that aspect. So with that said, then it brings in the aspect that you were talking about the role of the church. So the church, if it embraces everybody, it is open to the environment in which it is operating. It should be able to see the needy areas. We should be able to have a committee in church that just scans, the intelligence committee that just scans what is
intel.
happening in the environment and trying to see how we can then be of use. Because there's a lot of needs. Why are people using drugs? How can the church come in to try and counter that? What are the measures that we can put in place? We have got youths that are not working. What is it that we can do as a church? I think we can come up with maybe microfinancing, at that level where we can help the youth, borrow money from the church at reduced interest rates, as opposed to what is happening currently where, interest rates are quite high. So you help the youth to get that money. It could be a revolving fund where, it gets to reach as many youths in the church as possible. So I think we just need to really be very deliberate about how we do it. We need to look at the church as holistically and very open-minded, rather than in the narrow way of how
Sunday
traditionally how the
worship.
church has been viewed. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Does that circle back to, is it more of the leadership or is it more of the membership? I say so because are these things not already provided for, only that we don't utilize them? So I think you spoke about the role of the steward, for instance. We talked about how, they usher in the members, they count the money and so on. But is that where their role sort of begins and ends? Because I'm just imagining in terms of culture, how much more can those positions in the church do? We also talked, for instance, about, you talked about the different levels in the church, the supervisory, the management. um, is there any more that those positions can actually do with their membership in a more personalized manner? Because sometimes I think it's that issue of it's church, so it's central, so it's the preaching, it's done, it goes, but then who's then circling back to find out how the membership received the teachings, how the membership has received the management, to then provide the source of intel to circle back and say, oh, this is what the congregants are saying, to say, we can make a few tweaks here and there. And doesn't that come in again from a career perspective, where, from a strategic perspective, for instance, where you, as the at a junior level, you're able to get first-hand information from the customers who are the members, to then provide input into how the church can then be managed going forward?
I think the long and the short of the story is, if we look at our theme for the church for last year, understanding the times and what to do, that would then bring me to the point where we, as the church, we believe in the priesthood of all believers. And therefore, both the leadership and the flock need to be speaking to each other and move with the times. In the olden days, perhaps it was good enough for the priest, the clergy, to just come and preach the message, and after that, work with the community. But times are changing, and even the needs of the congregants, of the people, are changing. So we need to move with time. So there are certain things that are now becoming the in thing. For instance, if I just pick an example, gone are the days when the church would predominantly rely on tithes, offerings, okay, donations from well wishers. Now there's the thinking of investment, so that you don't become a burden to your members.
Yes.
Okay, so that kind of thinking, I don't think it should be left to the clergy alone because they are the leadership. So even us as the lay people have a role to play. We sell the message, and once there's leadership acceptance and alignment, then things can be implemented. So we need to be working together. We need to move as a team. I see opportunity where, even when it comes to, you said, individual sort of training. Yes, so if I want to start preparing myself to go to, say, top level management, and I'm in middle management, I should be able to go to the church and say, help me. I see if I played this role in the church, I'll be learning something that prepares me for the next stage in my career. So even the congregants should be able to come out, and we should be receptive and be able to say, okay, let's mentor, like she said, how do you help this individual to grow from the level where he is to another level? So we should be able to provide that platform as a church.
And this is a platform which you'd even rarely find in established organizations. But you have, first of all, just the caliber of the people in the church, the sort of experience that they have. It sort of really speeds you up. And once you get back to the organization, most of the things which will be looking new to the company would have already picked that up from that interaction that you've had with the different people. And it actually makes you a much, much stronger employee. And how can the church nurture strategic thinking? One of the key things in organization, especially leadership, is strategy, vision carrying, and so on and so forth. So, in what way does the church have that avenue to enhance somebody's strategic, orientation?
I think so. I think we do have provisions in the church, but this only applies to people that, are striving to find, themselves, people that are putting in effort. So yes, it works both ways. The church has the platform, but also as individuals, we should be able to engage the church and be able to find out. I'll speak about the TIS courses.
TEAS is theological
Education
education by extension in Zambia.
in Zambia, yes. Those are really good courses. The first course that I did was church administration. And I was amazed the content of that particular module. It speaks to just how you conduct meetings. As a chair, the roles and responsibility of the chair, the secretary, how you address each other in meetings. This is purely parliamentarian, procedures or rules, the Roberts rules. So it actually helps me right now when I'm conducting meetings to know that as a chair, my opinion does not really matter, but I should be able to give opportunities to others to speak, to air their views. How you come up with voting, how you introduce motions, how you address each other in a meeting, how you give each other an opportunity to speak. Nobody should be, not everybody should be speaking at the same time. So when you do church administration, I can guarantee you that you'll never be the same when it comes to how you conduct yourself in meetings, and also the aspect of accounting for the church monies, because that you find in the church administration. So we need to know that it's slightly different. The money that we actually manage on behalf of the poor, those coins that amount to the monies that we have, how should we then in return help these poor people? It's not just about getting from them. This old woman at home who says, I'm going to give a tithe because I want God to bless me, they're expecting something from the contribution that they've made.
Exactly.
So as a church, have we been deliberate? Yes, we tell them that when you give, God is going to bless you back. So who do we expect to bless this poor woman who's giving because they want to be blessed? It's the same church. So it needs to get back. So this you find in church administration. The other course that really helped me a lot, which which skills I use at my place of work, is counseling. Counseling is another area where you get grounded in understanding, empathy, being able to just look at somebody and be able to see, oh, okay, you put yourself in their shoes. It could be, so for me as a person who is supervising other people, I should be able to be sensitive to their needs. How is it that today you look different? What's going on in your life? I should be able to interrogate. It's not just about me expecting them to deliver, but I should be able to be concerned with their social welfare as well. Are they highly indebted?
If I can just touch you, Harriet, there's
Yes.
one thing that I learned during my training. They called it morning reflection circles. It's more prevalent with the Americans. So as a team leader, before you start work in the morning, they encourage you to come together, have a cup of tea or coffee for about 5 to 10 minutes. But as a leader, you are scanning and looking at your team and seeing who might have issues, they're not themselves, and so on. And so after that 10 minutes, the team disbands, they go to their various workstations, but you have picked up something that you need to deal with. You have seen an individual who is looking downtrodden, and so you call them aside and hear them out. You'll be amazed at how you will build that team.
Yeah.
So very, very important. I thought I might just
Yeah,
latch on to
exactly.
what you had already said and put in something.
Correct.
Yeah.
So all these courses are tailored to address social needs in our community. The other one is teaching. So teaching is really basically about how you organize yourself when you want to relay a message. What is it that how you structure that? There's always an introduction. You'd like to, introduce a subject,
Mm-hmm.
and then you research, and then, so that you are heard, so that when you are making a presentation or doing a report, it's very accurate. It's it's almost perfect. So all that you find in teaching. So the church has got all of these courses, and they are very affordable. I think you pay, unless maybe I'm mistaken, maybe this is the time that it's getting to 250 kwacha.
250 kwacha.
Kwacha, yes.
Like
Previously we used to
550 kwachas.
Yes, previously we used to pay 100 kwacha. It's now that it has gone, but you get so much
The
knowledge,
value.
and even that 250 is just basically for the material.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's for free,
So it's
because
pretty
they'll
much
give you,
free.
yes,
Yes.
they'll give you a printout, a booklet that you're supposed to use. So I think the church has all that structured. What lacks maybe is having, I hope I'm not going to be crucified on this one, having the right, I think the leaders, in this case, the CEOs who are reverent, grounded in this area. So from the way they are trained at the universities, are they trained to think or look at the church as a business, or is it just a platform for spiritual growth? So maybe a combination of two will help them, because they are the vision carrier, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
They're the ones that are carrying a vision. So when they are, taken or given a congregation, what is it that they are supposed to do? It's not just offering and, giving Holy Communion. What do they want to do to that church? Are they trying to migrate from a thatched church to one with iron, if it's in a rural setup? So they should be able to have a vision and to be deliberate in trying to, improve, so that as they leave to another church, another congregation, they've got something that they can point at. So it's not just a matter of being present as a reverend. So it starts from there. As a CEO, you need to understand, and then only then are you going to be able to be impactful and be able to, help and, encompass and deliver on all these things that we are discussing.
I like the part where you said the Reverend is the CEO. Does the church have an executive committee? I asked that because I think taking up on one of the points that you mentioned, where perhaps the reverends may be looking at it from a spiritual perspective, should there be a support team which handles the business side to advise on the business opportunities? Because as you're now speaking about the T's course, I actually now want to sign up. That's one. But also, number two, I think for somebody who may have not heard about it and the way you've packaged it, it almost tees theological extension by extension, theological education by
By
extension,
extension.
sounds more spiritual, and it doesn't bring out the aspect of administration, business management, perhaps also components of leadership that we might actually need, and it's practically free. So, is it just the way we've also just mapped out the church and its activities to make to sort of we've sort of given it a narrower view to just say it's spiritual, but we haven't made that much effort to look at the other side. And hence my asking to say, shouldn't the churches have an executive committee which actually helps balance the spiritual and perhaps the business side of things? And also you talked about, the lady who only gives 15 way in offering and so on, which is a lot to them. We never look at money as in somebody brings in 100%, then they are spiritually blessed. Maybe the person has 10 million, they've only removed 100 kwacha, whereas that other individual only has one kwacha and that's what they've given. So, based off of that, we would want to see that investment grow. Does that then also bring in career opportunities for people with investment ideas? So, if I'm studied investments and business, do I have a platform where I can come and say, I know how much, and the church is quite transparent. We know how much money the church makes. Do we have platforms where individuals can then come and say, this money that the church makes on a weekly basis, if we used it in such and such a way, we would actually grow the seed a whole lot bigger, and maybe assist more people and reduce that dependency which we have on offerings in future.
Yeah, I do. I think if I have to mirror what the current setup is, yes, we do have what you call EXCO. This is the pastoral. Yeah, but it's quite focused only on the spiritual side of things, on pastoring. So it doesn't bring in different skills. It just focuses on the elders currently. Those are the only ones. So I think you bring out this aspect, which is very important, maybe we either need to incorporate or we need to have a standalone exco, or but better still incorporate, bring in, technocrats. I know that happens on a quarterly basis. Whilst the pastoral, which you can actually refer to as exco, meets every month, which is, I think, a better,
Yes, monthly.
yeah, monthly
At least it
compared
keeps
to
you in
quarterly.
tune of what's
Yes,
happening.
what we have, the platform that we have where you have, all the skills brought together is when we have our congregational council. So this is the time when you have the investments bringing in their reports and so on and so forth. So yes, the platforms are there. Exco is there, but as to whether it is equipped or it's well formulated, I think that's something that we can review as a church and see how best it can address those issues. The financial aspect that you bring in, that's why we do have a lot of complaints currently, even when you are requesting for people to do their, make contributions towards this and that in church. There's a lot of complaints going on. One of the reasons I think that there's that is because there's no proper feedback. I'll give an example of when we were asked to contribute towards the synod complex.
Yes.
I think the assumption in people's minds was that once this is done, then all our problems are going to be over.
Yes,
But
yes.
if you look at the size of the church, I don't think that complex can solve all our problems. I don't think so. But after having said or encouraged people to give, and then you realize that maybe the income that is coming out of there is still not enough, you still need to go back to the church and say, okay, this is roughly how much it, and that's the transparency aspect that you bring in. This is how much is coming from the church. You should not shy away from telling people the truth, because I believe if the truth was spoken to, people are willing to give to the church, and people genuinely give. They could actually come up with the other, solutions and say, okay,
Solutions,
can we
yes.
have a complex in each presbytery, for instance, because you cannot expect the synod to address, problems in the typical rural Zambia. So I think it's the question of the church having a mechanism to get back to the people and give them feedback and speak about the challenges. But normally what we have is, no, we are failing to meet our obligations. You are not even speaking to the figures. When you are saying you have a shortfall, how much is it that we are talking about? Because then the Mujalas and the rest will just say, okay, we are going to resolve that amongst ourselves. We can raise
We can raise that
one,
money and
and resolve. But you just keep talking about this. So I think that it speaks to the point that you brought out to say, do we have exco? Maybe the kind of exco that we have is not, equipped enough to be able to address and look at those issues. And also it could be that, at the highest level, which is the synod level, we have not, looked at the church as an organization that requires to, bring in revenue and expense and be able to operate generally like a corporate
like
world.
a business.
We have not viewed it as a business, so that we are transparent and we are able to give feedback. Our financials, I've never, maybe they are shared elsewhere, the financials of your church, maybe they end up at presbytery or whatever, but it should go beyond that, because I'm the one who is giving, so I should be able to have sight, for instance,
where
of
the
those
money is
audited.
moving.
Yes, the money is moving generally at that highest level, then we should be able to help the church. So some of the challenges that the church is going through is because they've not given feedback, is because they've not structured themselves in how they should be able to expense revenue, bring in revenue, and then also how they expense and the challenges that they are facing.
Mr. Mujala, you had something to say?
Yeah, let me just perhaps make some addition. The exco in the church, yes, it's not structured to answer to certain things.
Yeah.
The exco there is more admin and spiritual. So why do I say admin? Because our typical structure is that you have the reverend at the top, you have the secretary, vice secretary, and treasurer. That's it. That's what you might call the exco, right? Then come the body of the elders. Now, these four people, how much equipped are they to be able to deal with the various aspects of the church. Literally, it's just administration. Just making sure that you have certain
church
things
is
running.
functioning.
Almost
Yeah.
housekeeping. you
Almost,
say.
Yeah.
if you can put it that way. And so the second aspect you did ask was to do with the platform for investments. Okay, I think we can pride ourselves that we have actually started that journey as a church. And therefore we'll be able to provide a platform not only for the church to invest, but also for the youths to be able to start learning how to deal with investments. In the past, like we said, we were just spiritual, just faith issues. But now we are saying, let's look out there, let's move with the time, right? If you compare just the two of us, I'm still the old model. I still do scribble. My colleague here, she's
Tablet,
high
fancy
tech.
things.
So if you give me that, I might struggle with it. All right. So yes, we are moving on. By the same token, the church now begins to say, let's not just keep on receiving monies and consume, okay? Because sooner or later, there might be very little that is coming in.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's invest so that we are ready to start growing, and growing not only spiritually, but also financially. We always say, what use is it to go to your brother who is hungry and say, my brother, God bless you, and then I walk away? Have I solved this problem? The answer is no. So the issue at hand is, I perhaps proudly can say St. Andrews started the investment committee, and then it grew and started going back into even synod. That didn't exist before. So if you look at the old constitution, that position wasn't there. But we started and said, let's do something, right? Let's look at how we are going to strengthen the finances of the church. So the investment subcommittee started at a congregation, and the idea has been now universally accepted. And so individuals can come and volunteer and put up their hands and say, I would like to serve on that committee.
That committee.
Because I want to learn how investments are done, how you grow your money, okay? And if I have also ideas to offer, I want to offer them into that committee and see how we can actualize the ideas. So that platform is now available and is beginning to grow at different levels. We might call it different names at different levels.
Yes, but the concept.
For instance, the concept remains the same. At presbytery level, there is what they are calling resource mobilization. And so everything speaks to that committee that should be looking into mobilizing resources from different investments.
Correct.
We even have an investment tool under the old structure of Lusaka Presbytery, Umozi Investments. It's a limited company and managed as a limited company.
First time hearing of it, and I've been in UCZ how long?
Can you imagine?
Okay? That was
So
the idea. Feedback.
Feedback.
It was the brainchild of Lusaka Presbytery Bishop, right? He, in his vision, felt that he needed to start something like that, make it grow, and see how the rest of the presbytery can also latch on and start to grow. So maybe early days yet, it is still being panel beaten. And I'm privileged to serve on the board of Umozi Investments. And therefore, I look at the investment side, and I'm given opportunity to explore ideas with different people. So there is that vehicle right now which is available.
I mean, as the conversation is going, initially, I think when we were planning the interview, I think the thought was around how the church can help build. But as the conversation is going, I'm also speaking up to say people can actually help the church. It's almost it's not a one-way thing,
Yes.
but it's a two-way thing. Now I'm just wondering, how do we bridge this gap? Because the church seems to be, it's spiritual and that's its core purpose.
Yes.
But then from what I'm learning is we can actually do a whole lot more by perhaps mirroring what happens in the corporate world, bringing it this side. At the same time, speaking to your culture, if we brought in that corporate sense, we brought it here, we can then be able to understand it better redefine it, reshape it, retrain our people who are these corporate ambassadors, for them to also go back into the corporate world to actually become better people. So I'm just wondering, should we have, does that then move to having things like databases of, qualifications, experience, appointments to certain committees? Should they be voluntary, or should they go through some form of recruitment process so that we maintain that standard? So the church will benefit from that expertise, but also the church, by bringing corporate expertise, but on the flip side, the church is also gaining more opportunity to empower the spiritual into these corporate people. And then they go into the world, and perhaps we now have a better society, be it the politicians, be it the businessmen, be it the organizational employees.
Okay, maybe I can go first.
Sure, yeah.
I think it would be nice to speak to that aspect for now, because we are just, migrating from the old way of doing things. I think it would be important going forward to, appoint people to these positions who have a basic understanding. Yes, the spiritual side of things is important, but if we could enhance it with a bit of qualifications or expertise or experience in that particular area, I think it will go a long way, because then you have a better interpretation of the church vision and mission. That's the idea, because the reverend can't be the vision carrier, also be the strategists in
Yes,
church,
yes.
at the same time be able to operationalize. So if we have to differentiate these different levels of management, then we need to have people that have at least some understanding and some appreciation. I see that that happens now for the position of treasurer. Remember where we are coming from, you'd pick on anyone, any elder, as long as they are, they're religious and they are able to show up, then they'll be appointed. But now I think we need someone with a background of accounting. It does help because they're handling a lot of money. They're entrusted with a lot of money. So at least they should have that qualification. So I see that evolving. With time, we should be able to have. I am just moving to the position of convener for Christian training, and now, having this conversation, I'm like, oh, okay, am I the right person for this position? So I think going forward, we shall see a situation where all of these positions will require some level of, experience or skill if you are to be appointed to this position. I also want to bring up the aspect of the church, moving both bottom up and up down. I think what is lacking at the moment in church is what you would call the communication section, communication and brand section, which is what we find in the corporate world. So we need, if we have to give feedback, then we need this communications department. I think it is there, but it limits itself to just, projections in chain and things like that, but
Yes.
not disseminating information of what the church is doing and what is available. So we need that faculty in the minister's office, because even in the corporate world, that sits in the MD's office.
Yes, it does.
To be
It's
able
an
to
exco
speak.
position.
Yes, it's an exco position. So they need to sit in there to pick what is happening and then be able to disseminate, of course, in the manner that it is structured and all of that. So that aspect is needed. So until we get to that point to know what is happening in the church, it will be difficult for people to volunteer because they have no clue. Look at what we are having, and I would like to really appreciate you for this platform. I had no clue it existed. It should have been existing in the church. This conversation, this structured way of, discussion should be happening right in church and driven by the church. You as an individual, you see it fit, and would like to really thank you for this opportunity. So this is what the church should be doing, because now you won't reach out. The world is a global village. So just by this broadcast, even people in the UK will be able to, and maybe see it and be able to understand what's happening in this country. So it should move away from meetings where you just sit and you're confined to a place, have your meetings and you leave. We should be able to leverage on technology and be able to reach out to the masses in a split of a second, this can be, broadcast and everybody will be able to understand what's happening. So what you're doing in your individual capacity should actually be driven by the church.
Well,
So
thank
for
you.
me, I think you're doing a great job, and thank you.
Thank you. And in closing, looking ahead, what innovative approaches could churches adopt to become incubators for career readiness and leadership development at all levels of organizational life? This I'll leave for the both of you.
I think really, first, what should happen is the church should be open-minded. Okay, open the doors so that you will have an inflow of fresh ideas. If you look out there in the secular world, there are lots of young brains that are itching to do things. And if you harness them, you'll be amazed just what ideas they can bring forth. As long as they are remaining within the principles of the faith, right? Business ideas that can come, businesses that the church can do. There are certain things that sometimes the church shies away from doing, but who knows, maybe they can be modified and still work in terms of how they take the church forward. So there's a partnership that must be, like she put it, top down and bottom up. So the church can work together with the people and still be able to move forward. I think there's a strategic partnership that is begging to be nurtured. Business incubation is really about, I think, ideas. It's about innovation. What gap does one see in the market that you can go into and start to nurture that idea and bring it out to fruition? So like I said, especially the young minds, they are more flexible in terms of thinking. But then you blend that with the experience. Those that have been there in the corporate world or wherever they have experience, they can be able to tell you this perhaps has been tried exactly in this format before and will not work. But let's look at whether we can modify this idea or not. So they can incubate various ideas. I see sometimes, to give maybe an old kind of idea, do you know that you can make a lot of money through beekeeping?
Yeah. So I've heard.
But we're not looking at it as a church, and yet on the other side of the coin, the church can actually employ members to start working and getting employment through that. It's big business if you do it right. And there's a lot of knowledge available that we can latch onto.
Yes. Within the church premises
within the
and at
church.
lower cost because it's mostly voluntary and so on.
So those ideas can be incubated within the church and they become the business of tomorrow. So again, perhaps in a nutshell, I would say I gave that as an example. It is very possible the church can incubate ideas and grow them.
Moderator, I would like to read this because I want to emphasize in a very summarized way.
Sure.
So I think first and foremost, the church needs to embrace technology, utilize digital tools and platforms to enhance communication and engagement with the community. Secondly, the church needs to have community-centric approach to the way they manage the church, understand and address the unique needs of the local community to foster collaboration and outreach. Number three is to cultivate a culture of experimentation where we encourage creativity and risk-taking amongst the congregation to foster a spirit of innovation. Allow people, especially the young people, allow them to innovate. Just post something and say, we have this problem. Can you resolve it for us? Let's not limit what these young people can do, leveraging on what he said. And then number four is to empower emerging leaders. Let's provide platforms for new leaders to contribute their ideas and skills by ensuring a vibrant leadership team. Young people are full of life. Give them an opportunity. They'll make mistakes quite okay, but we should be able to provide that leadership and guidance to them. Lastly is to adapt to cultural shifts because we as a church were built on handouts. When this information, when this message was brought to us, Because like was someone in the UK is seated and they will be giving us money, you know. So they never brought this message to us as a business where we needed money to advance the gospel. The gospel of Jesus Christ is expensive and it requires money. You can't do anything without money. So that aspect is missing. So we still have people that feel when you ask them to make contributions, it's very burdensome. You know, the church also, they're always asking for money. So in a nutshell, these five should be able to help us, you know, better manage our church and also be collaborative in the approach or in the manner that we run the church.
Fantastic. Mr. Mujala, Mrs. Angentile, thank you so much. This has been very, very enlightening. I think I've learned a lot about the church and what, it does. And so if you're a graduate looking for employment, if you're already employment, looking for promotion to middle or senior corporate level, remember the church or places of worship do have quite a number of structures, or at least are building structures to help you advance your career. You could use the church as a platform to catapult your career in the corporate environment. So use it, but while you're using it, use it to also strengthen the church, to also advance the work of religion, and build the kingdom, basically. So from all of us at Money and People podcast, it's thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.